Thank you for building this trike. Hope this ends up being a wonderful experience for you. We're going to try and make it better and better here today. All right, laid out here on the table, you see lots of different parts. These are all the different parts you're going to need to acquire, along with two boxes I have back here. This one is full of fittings, and the other one is full of pipe that I've already cut the length. Okay. The way the instructions work on Instructables, I'm going to start off with some general overarching things. This tells you where you can buy all these different parts, tells you what lengths you need to cut them into, and tells you just some general instructions as well as kind of a table of contents there. And this is the overall thing, so this gives you an idea where you're going. Step number one is preparation. This you're going to want to do, don't skip it and jump ahead. This will keep you in the shop and take care of all the dirty stuff that needs to be taken care of, so then you're working clean. And then the idea is then each section you build a subcomponent. You build each of the components, keeping on going here. And then in this step, you put all those components together. So steps 2 through 6, you're building them, and then step number 7 is putting all those together. And then step number 8 is adding on the last little ends, okay? To make it an actual finished out trike. You can see already in the pictures here, this one doesn't have the seat and this one does have the seat. So things like this, that's why it's called the finishing touches, or finishing whatever. Anyways, then the next steps are just optional, meaning these are the ones, and they're listed in the front, that if your child or individual or the person who's using it needs it, great, they got it. And at the very end is our licensing saying don't take this and do naughty stuff with it. Hope you enjoy it. We'll shoot the next video. Okay, so in the preparation steps, step number 1, you're going to take an adapter, you're going to take a bearing, and you're going to heat the adapter and put the bearing inside. Okay, here's an example of what we're going for here. You'll notice that there's a little flange on the bearing. You want it to sit nice and even with the top of the adapter when you're done. Okay, so I'm just going to take my heat gun and heat this up, and you just want to be patient here. This takes about 25 to 30 seconds, and you can literally tell because the adapter will become soft. You don't want to try and force it in before it's soft. You also don't want to heat it up with the bearing sitting on top of it, because then you're just cooking the grease out of the bearing. Okay, see that became soft? Now I just pop that in there, and you see it just kind of squishes. The only thing you gotta be careful of right there is you don't push it too far past. You just push it to where it is smooth and even with that little lip on the top of the bearing. Then you're done with that, and you literally just set it there. But you're gonna do that 10 times. So get all of your adapters out and go ahead and do that for all 10. We'll see you then.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so next we're gonna do step number 2. We're gonna heat this T and bend it to 22 degrees. Okay, simple way you can do that. You can get a couple of your friends over and have them hold the 2 ends of the pipe. You'll heat the pipe first, then once it's hot, you'll shove those in, shove this in, and then take this and crank it on over. And you're just using this for a lever. And again, heat this up before you crank. Don't put this in and heat it up, because then this will be hot and this will just bend with it, okay? Because we're doing a few of these ourselves, we made ourselves a little jig, and that's what I'm gonna show you how to do it, okay? So I just pop mine in this little jig. Okay, and I'm just heating up in this area right here. Because this side is the side I'm gonna ask to stretch more, I'm gonna have it stretch a little bit further, and I'm gonna put a little bit more heat into it. Okay, I'm starting to get a little hot there, so I'm gonna poke it back down into my jig. Don't wanna burn my fingers out here. Not enough, need to go a little farther. You probably would be smart to wear some gloves like I'm not doing. Okay, and then grab a clamp right here and put that in. Another great reason to have another pipe in these other ends is just to hold their shape as you're doing this, so that when it's time, they don't lose their shape either. There we go. All right, now we're gonna come up with something good. Okay, and just let that cool. Okay, you can end it. All right, so now we're gonna do steps 3 and 4. The reason I lay these out together is it's the same thing. I just ran out of picture space on this one. So you're gonna need your bent T that you just did. Gonna need your plus. Gonna need your 5-way. And then this one is just showing you're doing 2 of these, okay? So you're gonna take all these ones that you've done before, and you're gonna heat up the opening and do it in each one. I'm gonna start with the 5-way, okay? You're gonna stick it up on the end that you're doing, and you're gonna heat that opening up. So I'm just pushing it in until the adapter is flush against this, okay? Not that hard, didn't take a lot of force. Don't use a mallet on it because you're gonna end up pounding the bearing. Okay, and if you think about it, and then I'm just squeezing around here so that it cools, I'm gonna grab a bolt and slide it on through, okay? And this one heated just fine, but sometimes if you heat this too much and you try and shove the adapter in, it'll kind of tweak to the side, so you just run a bolt in to make sure everything's lined up and let it cool while it's on the bolt, and then you should be good to go. So do that for all of them like it's shown in those steps. You get 2 of these adjustable elbows, and you get 2 of those handle wing nuts, okay? You're gonna take and pop off the nut off of one side. Okay, there we go. And you're simply gonna replace it for one of these. And that's it. That is this step. That's all you're doing. Done. All right, you're probably not gonna have a jig like this, but we do. You're gonna take your 7.5 inch rod, you're gonna put it in some sort of clamp. You're gonna get a 5/16 inch drill bit, and you're gonna drill your hole. Gone, drilled your holes. This is what you're gonna end up with. Just wanted to give you one last shot of that before we moved on the step. The key thing is that you should be able to take 2 bolts, put them in both the holes, and they should line up and be pretty vertical with each other. So that's what we got. Okay, on to the next step. You take your rod, you're going the longer rod, not the shorter rod. Slide 2 collars on. Okay, one you're gonna remove the set screw from. The inner one, the outer one, you're gonna go ahead and tighten up your set screw. Okay, and now we're gonna go out to the drill press, and you don't have to have it lined up, that's just an aesthetic thing. You can put it wherever you want. Functionally, it doesn't matter, but now we're gonna go out and drill a hole through this, through the rod, out the back side to fit our pull pin. So let's go do that. So when you're done, you should be able to slide this on, go ahead and tighten that up, and then you should be able to run your pull pin on through. Okay, you can see my pull pin's a little tight. You can make that as tight and as loose as you want. Just be aware that the looser you get it, the more shifting you'll have in that. And also another good thing to do is go ahead and tighten this up, and then take a Sharpie and just draw a line across it, just like this. And that just helps you for lining it up in the future as you get to use it. It'll help you find its way back to where straight on is again for using that. So there's that step. Okay, we're on to step number 8. Step number 8 is you're gonna cut out these 2 gears. In the drawings, the pictures are 1-to-1. So if you don't have a CNC plasma cutter like we use to cut this out, you can cut this drawing out and use it as a stencil for these gears. That's step number 8. Just getting those gears made. Okay, so this is step number 9. In step number 9, you're gonna need two more collars in addition to what you already have. The gears you cut out, okay? You're gonna be taking the collar, sliding it onto a bolt, one of your 1/2 inch bolts, and your gear that you cut out, and you're gonna be welding it around like we've shown on this one, okay? The main thing you just got to watch for is your welding, that you don't weld over this, and that this stays nice and flat. You don't want to weld it like that. Your gear will spin like you don't want it to. Okay, so you need to weld both of these. And then you're also going to take your fender washer, slide onto here. And this one that you've just put your pull pin in, you're also going to get it up there, get it nice and flat and tight, and do a weld around it. The only thing you got to watch out for is that your weld doesn't run into the pull pin where it's coming out and where it's going in. And that's step number 9. We'll go weld it now. Okay, we're going to do step number 10. Be sure to know that we need to do this twice. So we're going to gather a couple. We're going to gather 4 of these T's and then 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches. Okay, you want to make sure when you put this in, settles all the way. It's good to also, you'll notice there's kind of a, I don't know, a ding on it or whatever when they inject the mold plastic. If you can line those up, you can turn them to the inside. Just a little aesthetic thing, but looks nice. Okay, you need to make sure these touch. If they do not touch, pull it apart, take your piece, sand or cut a little bit more off. They must touch, okay? And then, say you got it off, that's obviously exaggerated, but even if it's off a little bit, you can take a nice flat surface and squish and put them together, okay? Okay, so here we finished drilling a hole, and just make the point clear, this hole does need to go all the way through. It does need to line up for your 1/2 inch bolt. And again, you do need to do it twice. All right, so step number 0 that we never went over, but that's that you should get all your PVC pipe cut. Okay, that just, again, just go to your chop saw or your pipe cutters and just spend your time cutting all your PVC up first. That will just save you time, get it all done at once. Okay, so in this step, we're gonna end up drilling a 1/2 inch hole here. This bolt's gonna go through it. You're obviously gonna drill them separately, but it's just showing you should be able to slide your bolt through both of them. So we're gonna go hit the drill press. There we go, I've drilled my hole 1 inch from the end, and I'm drilling on through. So at the end, you slip your bolt on through. You'll want to make note of how even these are. I did a pretty good job here. If you get where you're done and this one's a little bit longer than the other one, don't worry about it. It just means in a later step you'll have to adjust for it, and we'll talk about it when we get to that step. Okay, so here in step number 12, we're going to be cutting out the seat bottom and back. So you're going to take your yoga mat here and just use these directions as it has shown. So here I'm going to measure over 13 inches. So there's my 13 inches over. Here I'm starting from this side, going over 8 1/4. 8 1/4. Okay. Here, this corner is square. It's 2.5 inches coming up, 2.5 inches going over. This corner, there's no exact roundness you must be. You just need to round it in some form. So same thing, I'm gonna measure up my 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches. Got my kind of square area here, and then I'm just gonna round it, something like that. Okay, do that to this corner, take it out. Okay, I finished cutting these out. This one's a fairly clean edge. This one, as far as this edge goes, you'll notice compared to the drawing, this is maybe a little crisper than that. There's no real science to that. You just need to round a corner in there. I have a 1 inch round in there. It doesn't matter, just round it some way so it's nice, or just go straight square if you don't want to bother with corners. Okay, here in this step, we're gonna go grab our 2 1/2 inch bolts, and we're just cutting them shorter. So the first one says, cut your 10 inch bolt, let's see, that's this one, okay, down to 9 1/2. And then the other one says, cut it from 7 inches down to 6 1/4. Okay, and I'm just gonna go out, take a hand saw or a chop saw, and chop those off. Be sure you clean it up afterwards. It's really helpful to have a bolt that you can thread on there, make your cut, and then when you're done, you thread off of it, and it'll kind of straighten up some of your threads once you've cleaned it up. So anyhow, there's your tips for you there. The reason Okay, so here's step one. You're gonna get your two bolts out, and the first thing it says is cut the head off of the bolt. Okay, so we're gonna cut the head off the bolt. Then we're gonna bring it back in. We're gonna set it up next to our drawing, or just pull out your tape measure and measure from after you've cut and cleaned up the end over 3 3/4 inches and make a mark. We'll stick that in the vise right at that mark, so the mark is right even with the top, and we'll take this part and bend it over. So we'll have that lining up right in that line, and we'll bend this on over. All right, so when you put it in the vise, you want to make sure your mark lines up for your 3 3/4, and that's measuring from this end, the non-threaded end. And then you want to make sure you have your threaded end sticking up, okay? And then you're going to take some big mallet and hit it. Do not hit the threads, just hit in this area. Okay, bend it to a nice 90. You want to check, straighten it up. Looks to me like it's still leaning over a little bit, so I'm going to be sure. A little more. There we go. Feel like I'm liking that. I'm going to go over there and get a square and fix it up as needed. Go ahead and do the same thing with your other one. Make sure they're both the same. Even if you're off a little bit 90, make sure they're both off a little bit 90. Okay, twice, right and left. So that should help you, meaning make sure you get it reversed for the left and right. You want to get some PVC board. You'll need it to be 6 inches long, and I believe it's 3.5 wide. Maybe it's only 3 1/4. Yeah, 3.5 wide. Okay, and then you're gonna take this shape and cut it out, and this literally is 1-to-1. So you can take this, cut it out, set it over the top of your board, and trace it out, or you can take all the measurements and trace them onto here. Okay. We cut this one out using a router, so it should be pretty good. Only difference you'll notice here is this is rounded as opposed to nice and square in this drawing, which won't change anything. That's totally fine. But you want to make sure that you get the edge all correct. You want to get your hole in the corner, and you want to get this hole drilled all the way through. Okay, that's step number 2. Make sure you do it for both of them. Step number 3, you're going to take a piece of plastic that is this 2 inches thick, 4.5 inches wide. Our piece, we were trying to cut a bunch of them out, so we end up with 1/8 of an inch shorter, but that's what you're supposed to do if you actually are cutting it exactly right. So cut it out, make sure you're on the corners. We've already pre-drilled a couple holes in this, and then you're gonna end up heating that up in the next step and bending it around. I want to show you that because you're gonna have to heat up and bend it around, another thing you can do is if you have some 3-inch pipe, you can just cut the pipe to length. However, fewer people have 3-inch pipe just laying around. They usually just have a piece of thin plastic, and so that's what you want to do for this step. So cut it out, round the corners, and we're done with step 3. You need to do that twice. Okay, here's step 4, which is made if you're cutting this out of a thin piece of plastic. If you have cut this out of a 3-inch piece of pipe, then you can skip step 4. But yeah, that's essentially taking a heat gun, take your pedal, and you're going to heat this and shape it all the way around like that. So you can start at one edge and heat and bend it, or you can set it in the middle and heat and just shove it on like that. But that's how you're going to do that step. When you're done, you're going to want to put several screws in. That's why we pre-drilled these holes. With the self-tapping screws, okay? And you're going to put 4 in so it's nice and secure in there. It's also good to work on a flat surface So that way you can be sure to keep the bottom of the heel and the pedal even with each other. That'll help. Okay, step number 5. We're going to be taking and putting this bolt on through and using the axle cap and the washer to hold it on. The washer allows it to rotate freely. Okay, so in the previous step, you put screws through, hold the back on. Okay, in this step, you're just going to take your finished bolt, slide it on through. Might have to work it a little bit, but you'll get it on through. And then you should have enough on this side to be able to put a washer and a cap on it. Okay, and that goes on just like that. Okay, you don't want to pound necessarily too hard on this. So if you're going to do this, you want to use kind of a rubber mallet. And no, it's not real super easy because you're trying to pound on the top of a bolt head, but that's what you're going for there. Keep working on that till that slides down, and then this should spin in too freely. And that's a step. Just using a wrench or even just a socket that's a little bit bigger than this can help you pound on the brim instead of on the cap. And that'll help you see a little fire there. Okay? And when you're done, this sits on here like this. Okay, and it's going to be stiff at first. That is okay, and that is fine. It will only loosen up with time. It will never get tighter, so there you go. Okay, here we go, step number 6. You're gonna be taking the strap and assembling it on here. Okay, and in the drawing I've tried to leave the Velcro straps apart so that you can easily see how it's going together here. Okay, so you're gonna take one of your pedals and put it right like that. Okay. I'm actually gonna have to tuck that in there. So that's gonna sit like that. Those are gonna come around on that side, and this will wrap around on this side. Oh, twist it there. Wrap around in this side like that, and then should be able to pull that open. This goes in, both of them go in, and then this one comes like that. Okay, and that's how that goes in. Okay, to hold these on here, you're gonna use your self-tapping screws. Starting on this edge, you're gonna pull this as good and tight down as you can, and then put a screw in here, pull it tight coming around, and then put the screws in on this side. Yeah, now the Velcro's all stuck together here. But you'll want to be centered on either side of that axle cap right there, so you put screws in right here. Okay? You want to obviously undo the strapping up here when you're putting all that together. Okay, I'm going to do that now. Twist it around. Okay, here we are in step number 7. You're gonna take your pedal to this point, and then also your double-sided Velcro that you made earlier. Same side as the axle cap, you're gonna come back to this corner and take out this screw. Well, if you're really good, you don't do that. Okay, there we go. And then take the very corner and screw it right back in. Okay. I'm actually going to start it here in the Velcro. And then start it back into our hole. Okay, and that's it. Okay, and you want to adjust it a little bit, but that is going to be able to wrap around the top part of their ankle and wrap around and hook back into itself. There you go. That's step number 7. Okay, now we finished part 2. We're on to part 3. We're going to make the fork, front end of the trike. This will be the handlebars and this will be the wheel. Okay, on to step number 1. you're gonna get the H's from your previous step. In the picture, it doesn't show the holes, but they're the ones that you drilled your holes in. Okay, you wanna get those out. Then you're gonna get these other lengths of pipe here, and it's gonna be kind of simple. You're just gonna go ahead and assemble. Probably put all the screws from assembling it on the same side. And then when you're done, try and put that towards the inside. Just a little aesthetic thing, but definitely make it nice. Okay, and then it doesn't matter which side. As you can see, this is pretty symmetrical, but these are 2 1/4, not the 2 1/2. They're a little bit shorter. Okay, that's step number 1. Step number 2. Again, from one of your preparation steps, you drilled the holes in here. You're going to pull that out. You're going to put this in here. Okay, and then just to keep our holes aligned, we're going to grab one of our bolts. It really doesn't matter which one, just something so that you can keep it aligned, and you're going to thread it on through both of them. This will also help you if your lengths are just a tiny bit off. Okay, so run your bolt in, and then make sure you're seated. That's where you should be at. Okay, that's step number 2. Step number 3, I'm going to set this aside briefly and get some other parts out here. Going to get 2 slip tees and these guys. Pop them in here. Voila. Okay. And don't put any screws in it, just leave them free floating. Don't put any screws in the handlebar. You can put screws into here, but don't put any screws in the handlebar. Okay, in this step, we're gonna grab our adjustable elbows, which are these guys here. You're gonna wanna put them in both places with the knob to the outside, right? Not to the inside. And then just for aesthetics, you can see that this is to the outside, but if you look at it, you want them to both be the same. So you can see these are the bottom half is to the inside, bottom half to the inside. Doesn't really matter which one's the outside or inside, but just make them both the same. Again, just make it nice. We all like nice things, right? Kids are no exception. Okay, go ahead and take all this, squish it together here. Okay, we'll attach it all together, and then we're going to put screws in it all. Okay, got all the screws in, and after I got all these screws in, I went ahead and put the screws in here. I measured out and make sure the handlebar was centered in here, and you just want to wait to do that until you've got everything aligned, because rather than trying to measure and put these in the exact spot, you're just going to fight it. So that's how you do that. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that when you screw these in, that this can rotate and spin. If it's not rotating or spinning, then you just need to torque one of these a little bit more than the other, because these will need to be aligned. And that is this step. So now we're going to move on to the next one. Step number 5, we're going to put the wheel on. There's a bolt, bushing, wheel, bushing, and then the knot on the far side. That takes care of the wheel. Up here on the top, you're putting this bolt in. Bolt, washer, it goes through, another washer, goes through, a washer, and a nut. Okay, let's do this one first. Okay. This is the longer of the two, which happens to be the one I used down here, so I'm gonna pull it out here. Okay. So we require a washer. Then we're gonna put it on through. Okay. We're gonna put 2 washers on. Keep on going. Okay. Now at this point, you may find that it's not lined up so perfectly. So I'm barely missing my hole here, right? Okay, if I can just wiggle a little bit and get it to lined up, great. If I can't, then just come back and take a 1-inch drill bit and fix one of your holes whatever way you need to make it line up and go through. Okay, which I'm going to have to do. So I'm going to pause and do that. But once you get it shoved through, then you're going to have to put a washer and a nut on this far side, and you'll be done with this step. Okay, got it adjusted, push it on through, put my other washer on, put this other nut on. Trying to pull it off here for a second. Okay, I'm just threading it on. I'm not going tight. Do not tighten this up. You're gonna have to pull this bolt apart later. So don't just tighten up. You're just getting all here so you have all your hardware handy. Okay, in order to be able to put this wheel on, I'm just gonna slide this up so that I have my clearance I need here. Normally you'll tighten this on down and that will suck that in. Okay, so that takes care of this bolt here, the longer of the two. Now I'm gonna move over to doing the wheel. Okay, I'm gonna start with the shorter of the two bolts. Start on the outside, get to this point. I'm gonna put my bearing on. I'm gonna get my wheel, put it on. Okay, actually it's a little tight, so I'm gonna pull the wheel in there and then work on fitting my bearing in at the same time I have my wheel held in there. Okay. Now at this point, there's a bushing down inside that's making it very difficult. And I forgot to grab my pencil, but basically you're gonna stick a pencil or something down in there to hold that bushing aligned. Then you're gonna push your bolt on through. You put your other bushing, that plastic bushing, right here on the outside. You come out, put a nut here. I'll show you when it's done. Okay, got the nut on here, run my bolt through, got both of my bushings in here. And you don't want to squeeze it down crazy tight because you will start squishing this round pipe in. So don't go too tight. Just go until they touch and then you're good to go. Okay, and that completes this step. Okay, here we're gonna do step 1. You're gonna assemble it like so. Make sure you gather all of your parts for this as listed here. And then get this flat and then put screws in here. So here I've got all my parts together, starting here. But if I get these ones that are opposite of each other in first, everything will be easier, like so. And then I'm gonna put this one in here. So these were cut a little bit long, so I'll just go out and sand those off, should be good. Okay, you wanna make sure that all your joints are really tight together. See, this one's a little bit loose. That one, that's not acceptable. You gotta make that a little tighter. All right, then you're gonna wanna push it flat here on a nice flat surface, okay? And once you're good to go there, gonna take a drill, gonna drill a hole here. Okay, do that here, 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 here. So everywhere that you've got pipe, to keep the pipe in the fitting, you're gonna need to put a screw in. So we're gonna do all that now. So get all of your screws in, you have it nice and flat. Again, I'm gonna go and sand these a little bit later so that you are nice and square there on the end. Okay, and that's that step. Okay, here we go, step number 2. Be sure to gather all your pieces. These are very, very similar, but just opposite of each other. So I'm gonna start my 3-way here, put my T on, make sure they connect, set it on the table, and push them to where they're both flat against the table right there. This one was cut a little bit long. I'll go out and sand that off so it's just perfect with the end. Okay, once I've got that level, take my drill again, and then I'm just gonna be doing the same thing but mirror image over here. That's step 2. All right, here I took it out to the sander and just sanded it off so it's nice and smooth and even flush. You can avoid this just by having cut this the right length or even a little bit smaller, and when you push this in, just push it in until it's flush with this front edge. Did that for all of them, so they all look really nice and clean now. And we're ready to move on to step number 3. Okay, here we got step number 3. You're not getting any new parts, you're just taking what you've already got before and assembling it together. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? These are on the same side as this. You don't want to do that. you want these to be on a different side. And you want to make sure these are obviously going the same way. Okay, once you get them started on there, you take the whole apparatus. Okay, you got a mallet handy. Use that. It's all flush right here. Okay, and then when you're done, flip it on this side. This is the bottom. And go ahead and put screws in here. In this step, step number 4, we're going to assemble these together. We start with the 90s. Take the T, put one in each side. Okay. Then you're going to put this in here, and this one in here. You're just going to want to pull this flat, and you're just going to get this sticking straight up off the table. Okay, once you've got that there, you know you're pretty straight. Then you want to put your screws in just like we've done on the previous steps. Okay, step number 5, assembling what we've done before and adding a few things. We're going to take a little short piece, put this in the bottom. You're going to put it in the front one. That's right. As they grow older, you'll end up moving this to the back one, which I'll explain at another point. And you're going to want to go back and put a screw in everything. I'm just assembling it right now. Okay, here on the back, putting this in. You want both this and this to be facing back. Instead of pounding on it like this, pound on it with the corner supported. So you've got that seated. You can put your screws in there. You're going to get 2 more pieces of pipe. Put them in the back here. 6.5 inch, and then your last one, that's the reason you wait for last because that'll make it really awkward after this. Put one right here in the other spot on the bottom. As the child grows, you're going to want to be able to move the seat, and you're basically going to swap these two, and you're going to replace these ones out in the back with some shorter ones. Okay, but we'll get to that later. So that's the reason you have both of these. This is waiting for growth to happen. Okay, and that has finished the seat assembly. All right, now we're on to part number 5. We're making the frame. This is probably the part where you start feeling like you're actually making a trike now. Here we go, step number 1. Okay, step number 1, you're just gonna be putting all of these fittings together. This picture here is just showing that they're all flat, which means you can lay it all down flat sideways and put screws into it. Okay, and I'm going to do that now. Okay, this is the only funny looking part. This is your bent T from one of your preparation steps. Don't grab a regular T, make sure it's a bent T. And then the other thing you have to make sure is that you're doing it the right way. Meaning if you're doing it like this, you can see the angle is pointing it back towards this. Don't do that. You want it like this. This is the wheels. You want the wheels to kick forward, okay? Okay, all of this needs to be really level, not like how it is right now. Okay, so just a tip for you. I mean, you need to make sure everything's in really nice and tight. But if you get a longer piece of pipe and put it in here, that can really help in rotating this around. So that will definitely be a good friend to have. And you want to get it really, really level. Just put one through the middle of it here, pop some fittings on the end, and then you can just push down on everything. That'll help you to get everything nice and level. If you don't get this thing level, you will hate yourself. Okay, that's the end of that step. All right, we're on to step number 3. And it takes all those parts there. It's pretty straightforward and simple, so I'm just gonna go for it. Okay, all of these need to be lined. You can see they're off a little bit because they have to be not just kind of perfect, but really, really perfect. Do not screw them together at this step. Just assemble it like that. Wait till it's lined up and in fitting with the rest of what it's going to go into, and then we'll put the screws in it. That's step number 3. here we're doing step number 4. You're gonna get your rear axle that you made previously, and you're gonna slide 3 of your fittings on that have the bearings in it from previous steps. Make sure you get it in the right order. Okay. Yep, everything's twisting on me here. There we go. Okay. Now this is symmetrical, so it really doesn't matter which way you use. But this is where making sure everything is really straight is important. Because otherwise, we'll fight here. Alright, and then I'm just laying here, up still, going to a harder surface to hit harder. Okay. Alright, and you want to keep doing that until these are nice and snug. I have a little bit of a gap here, so I might keep working on that. But otherwise, good to go, and that's step number 4. Here we go, step number 5. Gonna need this, gonna need that, and then you're gonna need this. Okay, just gonna put it together, put screws in it. Okay, step number 6 is this, this, and this. So it doesn't look much different, but main thing is, make sure you understand that these are not the same pipes. They're different pipes or different lengths. So go ahead and put that together and put screws in it. On to step number 7, gonna grab several of your previous components. Oop, I got this flipped around backwards. Okay, the longer one goes in the top, shorter one goes in the bottom. You wanna make sure everything's lined up, so just grab some other piece of pipe that you have and use that. And then you go ahead and tap them in until they're tight, put a screw in it. That's step number 7. Number 8, you're just gonna be taking your C from the previous step, sliding it on here, and then putting it in here. Here's where you tell how well you made it in the previous step by how easy it is to put the fitting in here. Okay, that one's not too bad. This one, pry out just a tiny bit, slides in. Okay, pretty good. And just make sure you slide on down, put screws in it. That's step number 8. All right, step number 9, set everything else aside. Get your fitting here that you made previously. Get your pedal axle out here, slide it on in. Take your 22 tooth gear, slide it onto one side. Got myself there. Then take a collar and put it onto the other side. Okay, just go ahead and center it. Once you got it centered, put your 2 set screws in. And that's step number 9. Okay, step number 10. Gonna remove the rod, slide the other gear on here. Okay. Then gonna take fitting you just did, put it on the same side, right here on the lower one. Okay. And then go ahead and take your chain. You're going to put it on both of them. Okay. Normally you'll have several links hanging out here, and you're going to want to find one shy of it, meaning for this setup, you can see these ones are looking like they're lined up just good. I'm going to take this pin apart so then the master key will bridge the gap. Okay, so in this step we've popped the chain apart, wrapped around. We're working on getting our master link together. Okay, and I'm getting really close, but I've strained my brains out and I can't get it closer. Okay, so that means I need to take this pipe here, I need to pull this off and take and just sand or remove a little bit on the front of it so that this fitting here can slide down further. Be aware, however much material you take off here will change the chain link twice as much, okay? Because the chain goes this distance forward and back and it's all connected. So if I take 1/8 of an inch off of here, I'm gonna shorten this chain up by 1/4 of an inch, twice as much, okay? I don't need anything like an eighth of an inch. I need something like a 1/16 or something, right? To pull this off, okay? So, but you want this chain to be good and tight, otherwise it will pop off and derail. So trying to get this as tight as you can be. If you can't get it together, then go ahead and sand a little bit off. If you're having the problem of they're going past each other, So you're looking like this, where they're way overlapping and now you're loosey-goosey. Then go ahead and take this fitting and pull out on it, pull it tight, and then put your screw in, okay, to hold the tension in the thing. I'm gonna go adjust it and you'll see it when it's done. Okay, so I got the chain on here. One way to make sure your chain is tight is to kind of put your feet right here, and then you can pull up on this. So if you're sitting in a chair, put your feet in there, pull up there. Okay. Once you've got your chain on, put your master link back on, and then you're gonna wanna put a screw in this to hold it tight and in its position. This cross, you don't want it slanted off like that, okay? Once you get that done, put that screw in, and you're done with step number 10. Okay, this is step number 11. It says 12 here, ignore that. This is step number 11. Okay, I'm putting the wheels on. Okay, so that's first number of steps. I'm gonna put the wheels on. I'm gonna put them on both sides, okay? Then I'm going to, on one of your sides, you should already have your hole drilled, okay? And you should have already have welded and gotten your collar out. So this here, it's gonna go right there. This is a point where you're gonna run screws through this and into your wheel, okay? I'll get it assembled and we'll go to that point. Okay, got the wheels on. Put your cotter pin and everything back in, slide it on, get everything tight, and then just go ahead and take out the slack and then leave whatever extra rod on this side. If you want to, you can grind that off. If not, you're totally good to do that. The only reason that there are two on this side is for aesthetics. If you really want to, you can pop one of these off and cut it off right there and just keep one on. You really only need one for this side. You do need two for this side. Because once you pull your quick release here, then that's what's keeping the wheel on. So don't get rid of this one. Okay, got this one on here. I'm gonna take my self-tapper screws, set it up here. I'm gonna run one in right here. I'm gonna run one in right here. That'll go right into the wheel. Okay, got both of these in. That's what causes the wheel and the gears to turn together. Okay. Before you put everything in, you want to see where you're going to hit plastic on the wheel. It is possible if you get too close to drive this in through the bearing, which is not good. Don't do that. Okay, but this is step number 12. Only one more and we're done. Step number 13 is just to take the part we made from the very, very first step and pop it on right here. And then you finish making the frame. All right, now we're doing part 6. We've moved on from the main frame. We're building the handle that goes on the back. Starting with step 1. This will be your longest piece of pipe, and a 90, and then a 5-inch piece of pipe. If you've been writing on your pipe like I have, go ahead and make sure you put that to the inside so it's not seen, but it's a good way to keep track of everything. Both ends of this are going to get covered, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, that's step 1. Moving on to step 2. Step 2, got a T and a 90, a couple of these smaller fittings. Gonna go ahead and put them together. Okay, that's step 2. Go ahead and make sure it's flat. Step 3, I want to get the ordering right on this one. Starting at the top, I'm going to go down, and then here's kind of the blown up picture here. I'm going to put a slip T on, slide that on. Right below that, I'm going to need one of these hose clamps. Doesn't really matter if it's tight or loose, just put it on there. And then going on down the plans, doing another slip T. And then if you want to be extra precautious, you could put another one here. That's not in the plans. We don't think it's necessary, but if you really did want to, you could put one there. I'm not going to. Okay, that's step 3. And then you're just taking what you've got in the previous step and putting it together. Okay, you see right now I have it wrong, meaning I have the handle facing the same way as these. I want that opposite. So I'm going to turn that around. Okay, go ahead and put that together. And then go ahead and lay everything down flat. make sure, get that out of the way, there we go. Make sure it's all nice and level and in. Okay, and in this position, I'm gonna take and put screws in all these. Don't put it in the slip tees. So we got slip tees, so they'll slide. Go ahead and put it in all these to hold all the fittings in. And that's the end of this. All right, here we go, starting part 7. This is where you're gonna see all the different components that we've been doing together, all coming together into one. Step number 1. You're gonna need the frame and the fork. So here's the frame. Here's the fork. Okay, gonna put them together just like that. So, gotta take this bolt, undo the bolt here, undo the nut here, slide the bolt up, stick this in, slide it back through both of the bearings, and then it will be a working fork that will put it just like that. See you in a sec. So here we've just finished the step. You'll notice the washer count, washer, then you have the, oh, we can come around the front here. Washer, PVC, we have a washer, and then the fork frame, and then I have another washer here, and then frame, another washer, and then the nut. Basically, you don't want the nut or the other things hitting the PVC. You always want a washer in between each spot, okay? This is taking weight. We don't do the same thing with washers here on this because this weight is transferring this way. Doing washers here won't do anything. The weight's not going down. It's going, or the weight is going down. It's not going sideways, so we don't need washers here. That's why you need washers all through here. And that is the end of step number 1. 3. Okay, now that we've finished putting on the fork, moving on to step 2, which is going to be the seat. You're gonna put one of these hose clamps on, slide the seat in, put another hose clamp on, slide the seat in. Okay, eventually we're obviously going to tighten these up. But that is that step. Not a big worry about. Okay, moving on to step number 3. Grab our rear handle we made previously. I'm going to come around to the back here. This is going to take a little bit of coordination because you got to line up 4 things at once. You got to line up these slide tees. Then you've also got to line up this bottom. Okay, and you just got to do them all at once. And then when you got it together, you can get your mallet out, tap them together, and then go ahead and put screws in it to hold this section together. And that's step number 3. All right, on to step number 4. Got all the PV stuff together. Now we're doing the pedals. So grab your pedals from the previous step. Go ahead and we're gonna pop them in here. Ordering, you're gonna take your non-lock nut, thread it on there. I'm actually gonna stick this down so you can see it a little better. Spin this around. Okay, stick that on in. And then we're gonna put our lock nut up here. Gonna set this lock up, tighten it up enough until it gets tight, and then take this one and back it on down to a little pinch on this rod. And you're gonna wanna do it in such a way that all of this is sitting nice and level. You don't want it sitting like this, you want it sitting like this. So now just get a set of wrenches and tighten that up right. Be back in a sec. Okay, so when you're done, your pedals should be flat. So you should be able to see from the side that they're flat. Okay, and I'll spin around just like this. Okay, a couple key things to watch out for. I mean, make sure you get it tight and whatnot and get it flat. But then also, if you want to come here or look from here, there we go. You want to make sure you have your clearance right here. If you're struggling with that, meaning if this is hitting right here, that means that this was bent wrong, meaning you bent it in too much. So that's just a heads up on that. And if that's wrong, then you just got to pull this apart and rebend your bolt, or I mean, just ream on it right here or whatever. But I mean, that's where your problem lies if that's an issue. So, okay, and we're done with this section. On to the next. All right, we're on to part 8 here. Doesn't look a lot different, but there's going to be just the finishing touches in the sense of just a lot of little odds and ends that are easier to wait till the end to do. Okay, number 1, you're going to be taking these plugs here and popping them in any opening that's left. Okay, the openings that are left are going to be right here on the end. And all you gotta do is take and squeeze them and pop them in. If in the future at some point you feel like they're not staying in very well, go ahead and just take a screw and put it in just like you would any other fitting. Okay, got those two. Down here on the bottom of the fork, here's an additional two. Okay, the whole point of doing this is to stop wasps and other bugs from living inside of this trike. There's one, there's four here on the seat. There's actually five, but there's four on the top part of the seat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth one's playing hide and go seek on the bottom. Okay, right here. This one is waiting to act as a receiver for this section over here as the child grows, and we'll talk about that more later. Okay, and then final two. One is up here. And then I forgot for a second where the last one is, but I remembered again, it's on the seat again actually, so there's 6 on the seat. It's on the very, very bottom of the seat post, okay, where it's sticking out the bottom. Okay, step number 1, that was easy. Okay, here we are starting step 2. Just putting the parachute cord on to hold the foot pedals level and even with each other. So you're going to start by threading it through one of them, tying a simple knot on the back side. The whole goal of this is just make this thing too fat to be able to go back through that hole. Okay, so go back through the hole. Okay, you're going to feed the cord up through the fork. Okay, gonna just let it rest there at the bottom. Come back around the other side of the fork. Over here, I'm gonna go down through that. Okay. Then you're gonna wanna pull it semi-tight, and or take both the pedals, put them level, mark that point with your finger, and go ahead and lift up the pedal so you got a little bit of slack, but make your knot where you marked it with your finger so that ends up how you want it to. It'll help hold their feet up if they're having a problem with their foot tipping over. Okay, and that's that step. Moving on to step number 3, we're putting on the seat. Bottom one goes on first, back one goes on next. Putting on the bottom one, I'm gonna put one here so that it's in the crotch, their knees aren't gonna rut on that screw. I'm gonna put one back here and back here. The goal in putting those ones back here, in theory, is that you'll get them to land underneath of this. If they poke out a little bit, that's still okay, but you know, it's just best for aesthetics that it's back there. And then here you're gonna be putting 4 in, and you're gonna hit each of the corners. You're gonna use your 1.5" screws to do this, and just put it right into the pipe. And then you don't want it to go completely through, meaning you don't just keep sucking down, because I mean, this is just foam, you're totally gonna crush it. There's no way it's gonna hold back a screw. But make sure it's not sticking out, it's sucked down, if not sucked in a little bit, just so that it doesn't hurt them. And that's a step. So this is how the screw pattern should look like. Again, you want them sucked in a little bit, but not absolutely crushing it. Also just want to make sure that you have this lined up even-ish. Don't judge my work. That's step 3. Moving on to step 4. Step number 4 is we're putting this chest belt around. Maybe you need a 5-point harness, go ahead and do that. We haven't built this for a 5-point harness, we've built this for a simple chest strap, okay? It is a chest strap that's that big and wide, and so pretty much every kid we've used, this is wide and big enough that it's held them in quite well. On the back side here, got backwards here. I guess it just depends on if you're left or right. But on the side that you have the buckle on, you're gonna measure up, or just kind of eyeball where the chest strap should line up about even, and then you're just gonna put a screw in the back here. If it's off, it's really easy to fix. You just put a new screw in it, right? So it's not a lot of rocket science in that, but just put a screw in right here. So just finishing up step 4, again on the back side here, you're only gonna put a screw in on this side. You're not gonna put a screw in on this side, because that's obviously what sucks it up. Once you've positioned the person in here and figured out what works snug for them, I'd recommend just taking and cutting off your excess here. Just cut it off and then melt it so it doesn't fray out on you. That's step number 4. Step number 5 is going to be securing the axle together. Whoops. Securing the axle together. Okay, so right here, as I'm spinning this, the chain is moving. That is because I tightened this set screw right here. Okay, that set screw just tightening is not going to be strong enough to really hold this. If I were to really hold this and then crank on this, like it just wouldn't last. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen up this set screw. We're gonna slide this to the side, and I'm gonna drill a little hole into the shaft that the set screw can sit down into. So I'm gonna pull it aside and show you right before I drill it and what it'll look like before and after I make that hole. See you in a second. We're gonna be drilling a hole in here. So I've taken and loosened up the collar on the far side and slid everything towards you, except for this. So I went ahead and tightened the set screw down, and it's left a little bit of a faint mark in here. And you really got to look for it, and you really only see 2 little marks, but that will tell you right where your hole needs to be. So that's why you tighten it down really hard to make those little marks, and then you loosen up, take it off, and move it over so that you have that mark there. And then I'm just going to drill a hole right in that mark. Okay, that's all the farther you drill your hole. We're gonna move this back over, recenter over it, and then run your set screw down into this hole here. Then go ahead and slide everything back towards me. Take the collar over here, slide up so it's snug and tight, and so that this gear is sitting up flush against the main thing here. Okay, moving around to the back. That's my set screw mark right there, okay? And that's where I'm gonna put my hole in. Okay, drilled my hole. This is just creating a pocket for the set screw to sit down in. If I slide it back and it's struggling, it might be that there's some burrs around the edge. You need to take a little piece of sandpaper, whatever, and rub those off, get it to slide over. So that's the end of this step. I'll put it back together and you'll see it when it's done. Okay, got everything back together. Right in here, literally the only difference you'll notice if you've done it right is that the set screw will be farther sunken down into it. You compare it against other collars that you have on the trike that aren't set in, like the ones on the outside of the wheels. You can see that it sticks out that far, right? Sticks out, you know, kind of even with this outer edge, and that one is definitely recessed in further, okay? Just a couple little notes I want to give you guys. One is, if you've done everything perfectly, you should end up with 1 extra T, and you'll end up with 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches long. Okay, these 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches long are used for the future. The future point, whenever you decide that you want to slide this back, you'll undo the screws here, pull this out, put this in. At the same time you're doing that, you're going to just unscrew here, unscrew, pull all the stuff out of here, and then just do a switcheroo, meaning move it back, put this in here, and take what was filling the hole here and use it to fill the hole here. Okay, as they grow, you'll know the time when that's the right time for that person. Okay, the reason there's the extra T is if something goes horribly wrong in the bending of this neck, and you need an extra T, it was just a few more cents to order an extra T to have one to mess up with. So that's what this is for. So if you don't need it when you're done, then you can use it for something else. But don't get rid of your extra pieces of pipe because you'll need those for the future. And then just the last thing, as far as this thing goes, this can adjust this way, okay? And you just change the bottom set point by changing these hose clamps that are sitting here. That's what creates a stop point, okay? So whenever you change that on those, that's what changes the height of it. So that's how you can get your growth there. And so that's it for the PVC trike. Go ahead and give us some comments on the Instructables here. We'd love to hear back, and any feedback for the future, let us know, and we'll keep updating the trike. See you soon.